So we're joined here with Dr. Sophie Henshaw, who is a psychologist and who specializes in bullying and has done a lot of research into cyberbullying. Sophie, can you tell me a little bit about how prevalent cyberbullying is and the effects on people?
Oh, look, I mean, it can be absolutely devastating. We know that cyberbullying can lead to suicide in the famous case of Charlotte Dawson, not that long ago, of course. And all sorts of other cases like children who have been bullied and been in the public eye, been bullied online. So many young people commit suicide because of this, or they even leave the country. You know, people like AJ Rochester, who was the host for The Biggest Loser, who also happens to be one of my Facebook friends. She was horribly bullied when she was in Australia from her time on The Biggest Loser and also the paparazzi and stuff. So she moved to LA, and that's one of the big reasons why she moved. So it is a really life-changing experience. You can't get away from that.
We've spoken briefly about Ivan. If you're in the public eye, how do you go about dealing with the constant, 100 messages a day attacking you?
Oh my goodness, well, that's something in and of itself. I think to have a really good example of someone who deals with that type of situation with incredible grace is Clementine Ford. You know, she's a very strong woman. She's a feminist. She writes for major news outlets and she is a published author. And she says some very controversial things about male-female relationships. And as a result, she gets a lot of bullying, a lot of hatred from men. And even there's been a Facebook set up against her. So she's really a very strong person. She copes with that very well. She writes about it very well. So I would highly recommend that somebody look at some of her writing for that kind of inspiration. Another person who was dreadfully bullied and humiliated on a world stage, of course, is Monica Lewinsky, who now has a platform talking about workplace bullying and shaming on a public stage. But I think you have to be really single-minded in ignoring that, because people do this thing where they project their hatred, their anxiety, their anger, their rage, their helplessness onto a convenient target, which they can do online. Well, not actually. I'll talk about that in a moment. They think they can do online and get away with it under the so-called guise of anonymity. But the fact is, they cannot get away with it. And here's why. If you are a keyboard warrior, and you better watch out because it's not going to do you any favors. Oh boy, does it come and bite you in the bum big time. One of the reasons for that is if you have a social media profile or anywhere where you have written hate messages to other people online, the internet has a very long memory, my friend, and it can be found. Not only that, even if you delete it, people will take screenshots. And if they know who you work for, who your employer is, it's only a quick phone call or an email to tell your management that this is what you've been up to online and this is how you're destroying the reputation of the company. Not only that, there is an online tool where you can put in your name, and for about $10, you can get a result about what your online reputation score is. It's called myonlinerep.com.au. And what it is, so you click online and then you click on the Get My Score button and you enter your details. So your name, you pay your $10 or whatever it is. It's not very expensive. And it will give you a score as to how you come across online. Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is, Facebook, Google reviews, all of that stuff, it takes all of it into account. And when I did the test, I scored over 97% for having an impeccable online presence, a reputation. You really have to be very, very careful about what you say online, because unlike when you say something face to face, in the heat of the moment, in an argument, or even like verbal abuse or whatever, if you haven't been recorded, that stuff fades. No one knows about it. It can be hidden. Conversely, there is no way you can get away with anything like that online. Not really. Even if you're typing at midnight behind a computer screen and the room is dark and there's only you in the house, whole world will know about it. Here's my number one rule, is never, ever, ever, ever put anything online that you would feel uncomfortable with being on the front page of the West Australian. For all those people who are keyboard warriors, and spewing out this invective to poor Ivan, that's going to come back on them. You know, what Ivan has to do, he has to be fully focused and fully ignoring any of that stuff and fully understand this is not about him. This is about people wanting an avenue, a safe avenue to vent their rage and let someone else cop it. But really, they'd be better off using a punching bag. To give you a really good example, in 2015, I was attacked by a Facebook bully. Now, this person, I'd never met her before in my life. She was a professional in the finance industry, and she made a habit, for some strange reason, of attacking other small businesses, and all her reviews on Facebook were 1 star. Now, she found something that I'd written, a comment, because she took exception to my anti-Tony Abbott stance. She was very right-wing. She decided that I wasn't fit to practice as a psychologist. So what she did was she put in a vexatious complaint to my professional association, you know, thinking that she could get away with it. But she actually didn't get away with it, because when I asked my Facebook friends to please help me in my quest to get this 1-star review removed, in which she declared that I was a Facebook bully, unfit to practice and practicing outside my scope of competence. They dug up all sorts of things. And because everything I put on my Facebook page is set to public, man, anybody can see that. And in this thread, they had all of these comments about who she was, what she did, even things like her medical, history, and all of the nasty comments that she'd ever made were boom. My Facebook friend detectives went out, found all of this stuff, came back again. Now, this is where it gets really dangerous. A few weeks ago, I was approached by The Project on Channel 10. And they asked me whether I had a story about having my business, my small business, threatened because of negative reviews. And I said, yes, I've got a doozy of a story, because, of course, I wrote it up as a story, because I'm a writer, apart from anything else, do a lot of writing, articles and so on. And I put together this story many months ago, and boy, it was ready to go. And by some fluke, God knows, because they're really interested in this story, The Project ended up interviewing another person or people who they thought was more representative of the story they wanted to run. But she was that close from being nationally exposed. That close, I tell you. Very dangerous thing. Another bully who attacked me, He made a comment on one of my posts that really made my flesh crawl. It was like really horrible, as a post about how much he loved to bully people and how it gave him a rush of power, and it was almost like having an orgasm. And I went, oh my God, this person is dangerous. Like, God knows what he's doing to people in his workplace. So I checked out his Facebook profile, and guess what? There on his profile was a photograph of his workplace with the name clearly emblazoned. I've just got this great job at wherever it was. So I contacted the manager, the human resources manager, who happened to be in Saudi Arabia at the time, like some weird place. And I told him what had happened. I sent him screenshots of the offending comments and the photograph where their company was displayed. And I said, look, this is what one of your employees is doing. And he said, well, thank you very much. We want to know about this stuff, because this is the kind of thing that gives us a really bad reputation. Now, I don't know what happened subsequently, whether this chap lost his job or not, but this is where you are playing with fire. If you think that you can get away with harassing and threatening people online, because it just doesn't work.
Can you, just before we go, you wrote an article, 5 tips to create connection online for empaths. Can you just go over, I know it's a pretty big article and it's really quite deep, but could you just briefly go over those 5 tips to really be safe online?
Absolutely. So this is really about prevention. Once the horse has bolted, it's a little bit too late to close the door. And really all you can do is kind of ignore and just shut out those horrible noises and don't expose yourself to it. But the number one thing that you need to do in order to keep yourself safe online is to choose your purpose for why you're online in the first place. And that sense of purpose has to be for something greater than your baser needs. So, people go onto Facebook and these social media platforms to share things about their family moments or their personal stories. And you know what? I don't advocate that at all unless there's a really good purpose behind it. So you might be going online, for example, to promote your not-for-profit or your charity or something like that, or to get people to go on a fun run. That is a sense of purpose. And what you post online should be clearly focused in that way. Never, ever, ever go down a negative path online. Don't complain about your aches or pains or road rage incidents or anything like that at all. When you come to your computer, the best way to keep yourself safe is to come at it from a really good space inside, a space of feeling grounded, calm, optimistic, and an intention to share something uplifting with the world. Now, by that, I don't mean fake or phony. I don't mean, because some people call it fake book because they only present their ultra glamorous selves. Yes, be authentic, but it's important to be kind, to have integrity, and to be clearly focused about why you're posting this particular thing. Because it's not about, so what if people like this or they comment on that, and bullying can happen in such small and subtle ways, even amongst so-called friends, family members, frenemies, right? Oh, he said this, he didn't do that, whatever. Don't go on social media to do any of that stuff. And it's controversial because I'm contradicting the old Mark Zuckerberg here, who wants you to post super personal stuff online. And I'm telling you, don't. Unless you want it on the front page of the West Australian, don't go there. So choose your purpose. That's a really big one. And then be very, very discerning about who you choose to interact with. You choose the community based on your needs. If you join a Facebook group, for example, a dog ownership group. I mean, I'm a dog owner, so I'm picking that, of course. Dog owners are wonderful, warm and generous people for the most part. And we all love cute dog pictures, That's great. I mean, it's completely harmless. Or you might go on a community for cooking tips or something, or some kind of sporting endeavour like dragon boat racing.
Are you saying don't choose a group that's a negative sort of choose a group that uplifts you and makes you feel good? Absolutely.
Yep, that's right. That's right. The other thing is to make sure there's eye contact with people online. So, for example, jump on a Skype call and eyeball the person that you're connecting with. You can make fabulous connections with people that way, even all the way across the world. I've got amazing, wonderful, warm connections in America, in Europe, in Australia, over East, all sorts of different places. Because you can talk to people, you can actually eyeball them, and it can be as intimate of a connection as the real, face-to-face connection. So eye contact is very important.
What's your next tip?
Well, I think you should be impeccable in your online etiquette. So it's important to be very
that should
polite.
Be your number one. That's huge.
Be very polite, very kind, lots of integrity. Do not get into arguments, because once you start disagreeing with somebody on, like that silly meme that was going around with blue dress versus, was it pink dress? Some people saw pink, some people saw blue, getting heated arguments. Why? What's the point? So don't get into heated arguments. If somebody has an opinion that is different from yours, ignore. And if they're, willing to make a pest of themselves, block and delete. You can choose with the algorithms, you can choose what you want to see online and what you don't want. It's very important to be a curator of what enters your consciousness. So just like an art curator who chooses, beautiful paintings for an exhibition, there's going to be maybe 80% of paintings that aren't selected. You should be like that guy. Curate your newsfeed. Say no. Block things out, things that you don't want to see. So you have complete control. And, I think Facebook is a fantastic place to hang out. Why? Because I've curated my content. I do not tolerate bad, negative behavior. I just block it. It's like there's a boundary there. It's like, no, I'm not doing this.
It's almost like have some respect for yourself, like just if you're going to leave the house, don't leave your house in your pajamas, just just respect yourself and respect other people.
I would rather leave the house in my pajamas than write anything negative online, anything that can come back to bite me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this has been such great advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Sophie Henshaw. You're amazing.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much for interviewing me, Amy Rose. I'm delighted to have been on your show, and hopefully I can help people in workplace bullying situations, which is because I work as a clinical psychologist in my consulting rooms here in Perth in Western Australia. Very happy to help anybody out there. They can either come to see me in person or find me on Facebook or through my website freespiritedme.com.
I'm going to put all of your links up, Sophie, and it's really good that people can actually access you from across the planet.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Thank you, Sophie.
All right. Thank you, Amy Rose.